Look, 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 let your angel sing. I ain't twisted, this ain't the Henny talking for me. This is literally Malcolm Little talking through me. I ain't possessed, this is just when spirit meets the flesh, and a revolutionary is born, nothing less. It's hard for me to cope with stress, especially when I see the world much different from the rest. I can't sleep, nightmares, waking up, cold sweat, wondering if I ever made it, will they do me like the rest? It's for my black souls who really too upset to rest, so they wander through my dreams. Please tell me what this means.
Cotton Club Radio.
Welcome to the Cotton Club Radio. I'm your host, Cotton Club. What's up, family? What's going on with y'all, man? I hope everybody is blessed. I hope everybody is good, taking care of the family, keeping health first, and everything like that. I want to get into this one, man. Now, I want to talk about today's subject matter, and it's called Hate Speech is Not Free Speech. You heard what I said, family. Hate speech is not free speech. I say this because MAGA is at it again. You know, the whole Make America Great Again crowd, followed by the face of the movement, Donald Trump. And they're doing what we expect white supremacists do. They're carving out a lane for white supremacy. And anyone in their path is their enemy. And they're using speech as a tool, a weapon of propaganda to spread lies, misconceptions, manipulations, ultimately to garner a younger youth-based following. So they set up shop at colleges where they're weaponizing hate speech under the guise of free speech. And what they're doing is they're using a lot of trigger language and a lot of inflammatory language and presenting it as genuine question. But in reality, it's all bad faith argument. See, what MAGA learned from the Democrats was to garner and to target a young following, a younger audience, a younger voter base. And where not to go better than a college. And this is why you started seeing people like Charlie Kirk at these colleges. Because young people represent a certain type of innocence. They're young, they're naive, they're in their premature stage of development. And if you want to get in the minds and brainwash people, you go to where they are, and that's college. So it wasn't a coincidence that that's where Charlie Kirk spent most of his time. But I want to focus this commentary on a bad faith argument and a misinterpreted argument that Charlie Kirk himself continued to spew. And this argument is based in anti-black racism, which is typical for the alt-right and the far right. They're normally targeting black people in their talking points. They'll start off talking about transgenders. They'll talk about how the white man is in danger and use all sorts of talking points that are cultivated in their think tanks to support that lie. And basically anyone who challenges them, they try to silence them. Even after Charlie Kirk's death, anyone who spoke out against what he represented, and that's the mind-boggling thing, because Charlie Kirk to me was a very open white supremacist. He was a very proud racist. So when people begin to speak out against his rhetoric after he died, and the MAGA started to silence people, that's when I knew that MAGA and that alt-right crowd that's behind Trump, his following, that they're evolving into something totally different, way different than what it started on, or maybe it's always been that way. But I'm starting to see hints of totalitarianism and hints of fascism. And if you follow my videos from when I first started making them, I said Trump's downfall will be his white supremacist base. And family, we are watching it all crumble right before our eyes. So, in breaking down why hate speech is not free speech, I want to break down this talking point. This 13% of the black population is committing 50% of the crimes. This is a talking point that Charlie Kirk used a lot. And to me, it's a great example of hate speech. Because number one, it's not true. And number two, there's so many nuances and so much depth to this that just saying that does not tell the full story. And when you say that the way he's saying it, 13% of the black population commits 50% of the crimes, that's just a blatant lie. And the fact that it's so easy to research and so easy to figure out tells me that he was genuinely, purposefully pushing this lie. These type of lies aren't fair to the black community, primarily to black men, ultimately putting a bullseye on our back. Where does the idea that 13% of the black population is committing 50% of homicides actually even come from? Well, it's a talking point created by the alt-right and conservatives to create and promote fear surrounding black men. Establishing fear of the black man in white society benefits white men, family. Number one, it scares the living hell out of white women. Yeah, we gonna get deep tonight, man, because I'm gonna keep it funky with you, man. This whole attack the black man and make the black man out to be the epitome of evil and the epitome of danger and, all the whole black brute and all of that. That's ultimately done by white men to scare white women so that they are fearful of dating black men or engaging in sexual relationships or even procreating with black men. This is under the ideology of preserving white numbers, and it's done to scrutinize white women into submission. And we've seen this before. If you've ever watched Scared Straight, this will give you a good understanding of what I'm talking about. So you have a bunch of children who don't know how to act. They're mischievous and need to be disciplined. So what did they do? They took them to a boot camp. They would basically scare these kids into behaving the right way, into the way that they wanted them to behave. So they would do a lot of shock therapy, telling them the worst things that could happen if they don't correct their behavior. They'll take them to a prison, tell them horror stories, ultimately to scare them to a straight and narrow path. This is what white men are doing to white women. They tell them, watch your back around those black men. They're scary. They're dangerous. They kill each other at alarming rates. You can't trust them. You'll end up a baby mother and they'll never stay with you. They'll never marry you. They're just trying to use you for sex. They're animalistic. They're primal. All they do is think about sex. Communities are broke down. They are degenerate. This is what the white man keeps telling white women. They indoctrinate them with all of these worst things that could happen to them if they were to engage with a black man on any level. So lies like the 1350 myth, that's all it is. It's a lie meant to control white women in their community, all at the expense of black suffering, family. Back during Reconstruction, when black folks was let off those plantations, these type of lies would get us hung. And these type of lies that permeate through white society and create stereotypes can get black men killed by the police. Movies like The Birth of a Nation depicted black men as sexually crazed creatures who had to be tamed by white violence. Hence, the KKK was sent out to protect the precious white woman from the savage beast and the black man. So I want the family to understand the power of stereotypes and why they even exist. As simple as it may seem to us, we don't always understand why these people are always trying to put us in a box and always trying to create some stereotype that vilifies, dehumanizes, and demonizes us. But when you start to look at history, things start to become very clear. And we understand that these individuals, this MAGA crew, people like Charlie Kirk, these individuals were part of spreading this propaganda. A lot of MAGA's lies about the black community are to mobilize their white supremacist base under one common threat, but to also facilitate total domination and control. They understand that history proves that when groups are being raised war upon and up for extermination, 99% of the time there is a lot of propaganda targeted toward them. We can look at people like Hitler and what he did in Germany. Before the Holocaust, there was a lot of propaganda and lies put out about the Jewish masses. So we know that in America, they've been doing that toward black people for centuries. So hate speech weaponized as free speech is nothing new under the sun. This is something that has happened over and over and over. It's just now you have people like Charlie Kirk who are recruited to go out here and normalize hate speech. So in breaking down this whole lie about 13% of the population is committing 50% of the homicides, we have to break this down from two perspectives. First of all, we got to look at the 13%. 13% of the population is committing 50% of the homicides. 13%. Family, that's so easy to debunk. Black men only represent about 6% of the black population, and the average age for black men are 34 years old. So being that 50% of the arrests were 18 to 24 years old, that percentage will probably go down. So we're talking about 5% of the black population, which is a very small fragment of our total population. We also have to understand that the FBI data only included cases where the offender's race was known. Understand that 50% of homicides are unsolved, and most of the unsolved homicides are in white communities. They're not in black communities. And a lot of the data and statistics that's given to the FBI by various police departments, mostly white, is optional. So they're giving them data that they want to give them. And if they're hyper focusing and targeting black men, they're not going to write that down. And that's context that's missing when arrests are high. And just off of that fact alone, it's very clear that black crime statistics are very skewed. Most homicides are done by the same race. For example, 88% of white homicides are done by white perpetrators. And proximity to violence is never mentioned in statistics. So that leaves that 50% arrest data open for misinterpretation. But let's take it a step further, because we're seeing this lie just get picked apart. You know, the 13% really is about 5 to 6%. And the 50% really is 50% of arrests and no convictions. But what is the total amount of homicides in 2019 that a lot of this FBI data is talking about? That was 7,964. So half of that is about 3,277. Family, that's not even 1% of the black total population. You can also add into the fact that these numbers don't really tell you who's of Caribbean descent, Afro-Latino descent, and who's from American chattel slavery descent. These numbers are just a bunch of people lumped together to weaponize and conflate numbers. The black community is not one big Negro. And then when you add to the fact that 50% of black people arrested on homicide-related crimes are exonerated, these numbers start to fall short even more. So when the smoke clears, what you're left with is that most black men, 99.9% of black men did not commit homicide in 2019. And I'm sure that that number in 2025 has significantly gone down. Listen, I'm not giving you the context and nuances of these stats to excuse crime in the black community, because that's non-productive. Of course, homicide in any community is unacceptable, but what we are not going to do is tell these children that they're violent and deserve to be subjugated because some misinterpreted stat said so. There is a large segment of this MAGA community who are having wet dreams about black criminality. But I hate to break it to them, but most people in the black community are hardworking, productive members of society who are not committing crimes. We are not going to have people internalize crimes and feel like they're accountable for what some low life is doing. No other community has to bear the burden of being accountable for what every low life in their community does. We are the only community where our low lives are the standard, where our 1% of criminals all of a sudden represent 13% of our population. Because when you do the research and you start to read on these stats, what becomes very clear to me, while everybody's playing dumb and acting like they don't know that the black community is over-policed. And these stats provide the evidence. Cops arrest in high numbers in the black community, make quotas. Police departments get government funding every year, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars. In order to keep receiving hundreds of millions of dollars in government funding, they need certain amounts of arrests. So they normally target low-income, poverty-stricken communities that happen to be mostly black. The fact that young black men are arrested 50% more than other races of people and 50% exonerated more than other people proves that in many situations, cops purposefully arrest innocent young black men knowing that they didn't commit certain crimes just to put their names through the system. What I'm saying, family, is our prison industrial system is a business, and black men have been the product wholesale since slavery. So when we get a guy like Charlie Kirk who tells you that black men are the most violent and use 1350 statistics to support his argument, what he really is doing is called a bad faith argument. And that is an argument made with dishonest intention, lacking a genuine desire for truth, and instead seeking to deceive, manipulate, or achieve a hidden agenda through misinterpretation, logical fallacies, or by dismissing opposing views. And young people, don't internalize these myths, man. You are not inherent to criminality. If you need proof, look at yourself and the people you know. How many college-educated people do you know? How many hard-working, productive members of society do you know? Nurses, teachers, preachers, accountants, authors, electricians, security guards, and many of us who aspire to be doctors, lawyers, firemen, and even police. You are not responsible for what some crackhead does, and you're not responsible for what that 1% of our population does. Crime has numerous factors: environmental, social, economic, poverty, high unemployment, income inequality, and lack of access to education and recreational opportunities. Black people are working every day trying to create solutions for our people. We are not waiting around for some white savior. Many of us are working hard every day doing mentorship programs, youth ministries, creating organizations like the Real Dads Club, where black fathers are celebrated and not told that they don't exist. And this is why people like Charlie Kirk was diabolical liars, because he fed misinterpreted stats without context, knowing that it would deceive his core base: young, naive, mostly white college students. That's all I got for you, fam. It's the Cotton Club Radio. Holla at me.
King. Look. Let your angel sing. I ain't twisted, this ain't the Henny talking for me. This is literally Malcolm Little talking through me. I ain't possessed, this is just when spirit meets the flesh, and a revolutionary is born, nothing less. It's hard for me to cope with stress, especially when I see the world much different from the rest. I can't sleep, nightmares, waking up cold sweat, wondering if I ever made it, will they do me like the rest? It's for my black souls who really too upset to rest, so they wander through my dreams. Please tell me what this means.